Hello, everyone. I'm Amy Carrier. This is Michael Sillion. How do I pronounce that, Michael? Did I get that?
Sillion.
Sillion. Michael Sillion from Sweden, planet Earth.
Yeah.
Universe. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe another planet. Maybe you're from the Pleiades. Maybe you're from Sirius. Yeah. You can tell us that. But Michael, I'm very, very happy about this. We are so close to 2020, and I have asked and invited in Michael Sillion, a.k.a. Captain Future, to become a mentor teacher in the classroom and teach you how to think about the future. So welcome, Michael. I'm so glad to have you here and have this conversation today. Michael, thank you for being here and welcome. And Michael, why don't you tell us about yourself? Who is Captain Future?
Who is Captain Future? Yeah. So Captain Future is it's a call and a challenge from Buckminster Fuller. He wrote a book 50 years ago that he called Operating Manual for Spaceship Earth. And there's a quote that says that we have to become the crew members of Spaceship Earth. And then I said, yeah, if there is a crew, I could be a captain. And I asked my friends during a ULab course we took in 2015, who should I become? Because by that time I've been on a 4-year journey of discovering myself. And they said, we came up with the name Captain Future because I'm both lots inspired of superhero movies and superheroes, and I'm a geek, and I talk about the future all the time, and I hosted future lunches and stuff like that. So that you can become Captain Future. So that's when I started using that title, and I started a podcast called the Captain Future Show by then as well. So.
Oh, cool. Tell us about that show. What did you talk about in that show?
Yeah, I started interviewing some friends and talking about how do we co-create the future. And I they started in Swedish, but then I quickly switched to English after a while because I noticed that all my fans were speaking English, and also my guests also started speaking English. I went to San Francisco in 2016 and interviewed a lot of people, so then I switched to English in that. So, and we talked a lot of mostly friends, but also some cool people. I had Otto Scharmer is my best guest so far, so I've had a fantastic conversation with him. So,
oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So you went to San Francisco. Do you think San Francisco has? Do you think they're looking at the future? Do you think they have a good sense of where we're going? The whole Silicon Valley kind of building the future using technology. Do you feel like something, or do you feel like they're overrated, or do you see collaboration?
Yeah. Some parts of San Francisco is very inspiring. There lives a lot of good friends and inspiring people there. So I met up with the whole evolutionary leadership community that is originated from there with Fyodor and Manuel Manga. So, and they have a good crowd there, and we have had a retreat every year since 2016 when I first met them. So,
oh, that's great. Where's the retreat?
It has been 3 years in Yucaipa in California, but this year we went to Greece instead, to Christiana Gadiotti's mountain village and a coastal house as well in a small fishing village. So it's an amazing trip.
Ooh, that sounds like fun. Great.
Yeah. And next year we may be going to Africa. We don't know yet. So.
Oh my gosh, where in Africa? Do you have an idea?
Kenya or Uganda. We have 2 fellowships program attendees that they are from Kenya and Uganda. So, yeah.
Well, I think I worked in Kenya, and I think that Kenya and Uganda, because it's a sister country, it's right there. Yeah. A lot of overlap culturally and everything. I think Kenya is where you can see a lot of the new forward movement in the African continent. I think that there's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of just already people are doing things. And what I love, and I'd love to hear, have you been to Africa?
I've never been to Africa, no.
Okay. Oh my gosh, you'll love it. I want to go whenever the trip is. I want to go. But the thing about the African continent is there's nothing but potential. And I know here in the West and in my country, there's so many limits to creating something new that when I worked in Kenya and when I look at here on the planet, are people moving forward more rapidly? I see it happening in Africa.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful that that's where the next gathering could be. I know, Michael, you're from a part of the world where, from my view, in the US, I feel like there's a lot of innovation and forward movement when it comes to combining technology with social impact and kind of marrying this need to work collaboratively to build the future. So can you talk a little bit about that and what's unique about your part of the world and what you see, where you see evolution happening?
Yeah, I live in the Nordic countries in Sweden. The other one are Finland, Norway, Denmark, and Iceland. And there, we went in the middle of the 18th century. We were one of the poorest countries in Europe. We weren't that very small population. And in 1870, 1/3 of the people in Sweden migrated to North America. So there was a lot of poverty and starvation, so many people left. But from there on, there was a program that Thomas Björkman writes about in a book called The Nordic Secret, where we took ourselves out of poverty and formed what the model for the Swedish society. Together with Norway and Denmark, we formed a lot of retreat centers all over the countries, where we taught many of the adult people how to think and how to behave. So I think they said that around 10% of all the people in our countries here went to these retreat centers for 6 months or something like that. I haven't all the facts about that, but you can check out the book, The Nordic Secret, if you want to know more about it.
Yes, I'd love to.
Yeah, and from there on, we formed many of the great industrial companies. Alfred Nobel had his company where he invented dynamite and everything, and from there on, he instigated the Nobel Prize of all the money he earned on dynamite, and tomorrow is the Nobel Day, so tomorrow we give out the prizes in Stockholm for that. So, and from there on, we were spared from both World War I and World War II, so we didn't have to do lots of rebuilding like all other countries here in Europe. So we got a head start after the Second World War, and then we instituted a very good welfare program where everyone got social security and everything, and we went from so this was a 100-year journey from becoming the poorest country to one of the best countries to live in on earth. And it still is, but we have institutionalized so many of our things here, so we're very institutions and bureaucracy. What's the name?
Bureaucracy.
Bureaucracy. Yes, so there's a lot of that now. So now change is hard and to make. So there's some challenges in Sweden now we're talking about how do we keep up with the changing world, as all of the world has to do. So we are not on the speedy change that we need to be either here. So we have our challenge here as well around a world that's changing rapidly.
Mm-hmm. So what is Sweden doing? Given that you started out 100 years ago with just pure poverty, and you pulled yourselves out of the poverty.
Yeah, high education rate and like social justice and high equality and stuff like that has been a success model, and a lot of space for creative and people and arts and culture and music. One of our leading export industries is still music production. So many of the pop songs you hear in the US are produced by Swedish producers like Britney Spears and some Madonna songs and stuff like that. Yeah,
I did not know that.
Yeah, so
that's cool.
So that's a success story. So there's a lot of people who's very very good in the creative and arts business here in Sweden. So we have a lot of funding for people doing arts and creative, in the creative industry.
You know, it's really interesting to hear that, because in this country, the funding for arts has just been cut and cut and cut. It's just been reduced constantly. And any sort of arts activity is the first thing cut from the budget anywhere. Whether it's a corporation that has funding set aside for, you know, arts or entertainment events for employees out of appreciation, or obviously the education system. There are almost no arts programs anymore in the education system. So what I'm hearing from you is that arts is really central to Swedish culture, and it has allowed the Swedish culture to kind of grow something wonderful, because people are also fed on a different level. Yeah. So I think that's wonderful. And I mean, there are many reasons that I asked you to come talk about your perspective, about the future, about what's happening now that we're moving into 2020. Also, what can you share about this unique Swedish culture? I mean, I have so many Swedish friends in my Facebook account, and so many, you know, friends I consider actual friends, and I'll pick up the phone and let's have a conversation. I think that there's a lot that the world can learn from what's happening in Sweden, from both the culture, but also the consciousness, and especially this social impact, and using people as capital, like the social capital.
Social capital,
Yeah, to make a better world. So tell us a little bit, tell the people who are watching what social capital is, and anything you'd like to say about that, and perhaps the work you do with Bertola.
Yeah, so Bertola, my friend, is an expert in what he calls social capital. So there's human capital, that's the skills and talents and all the things we as humans have, our abilities and stuff. But the social capital is like, who do you know and how do you collaborate and stuff like that. So they're of course both connected, but it's two different things that's both connected. So social capital is something that we are just aware about the value, becoming aware of the value, and we have been able to grow it very fast thanks to internet first, and then now thanks to social media, that Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter and stuff like that we have really connected the world during the last 12 years since these became global platforms. We had social media before in Sweden. We had a very large Swedish platform in the early 2000s, but now we that went out, but now we have Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, and using that we have now connected the world on a global level. Many people don't really understand and use it right, and many people complain about social media and it's not used right, and you can spread all kinds of lies and untruths on social media. But the foremost skill, that how me and Bertola use it, we actually spend many hours per day connecting, talking, discussing, looking up what's going on and stuff like that, using your social media. So that's a like activity we need many more people doing, and Rihan Alawala of course does this in a very good way. We all do it differently, but we understand the power of social media to connect the global world, and our thesis is that we need like millions of people all over the world doing this full time every day. We can call them weavers, connectors, navigators, or something like that. So, or Bertola and I did a video this weekend called what is a system entrepreneur. So that's the technical definition of this. So I can link that if you want to see that. It's a 1 hour video where Bertola talks about what is a system entrepreneur and what is it we do, so stuff like that.
I think actually someone is watching. You probably know. I think she shared that video in the classroom. So would you just share it again at the top of the classroom so that people can find it?
I'll do that when we're done here.
So can you explain, what did you and Bertola come up with? You called it a system entrepreneur, right?
Yeah. So our thesis is that we need people. There's of course been connectors in all times, and there are many people working professionally as connectors, but they mainly work in the business sector where they actually get some kind of payment for a different business deal and stuff like that. But we need like a public servant that does this for everyone in society, all sectors, like for the government and local governments in cities and universities and school and young people and old people. So that's what some people call a weaver, or we call navigator. So that's what the thesis we need. That we need a lot of public servants that does this for everyone and help everyone navigate the complex society, because the speed of change is increasing in society. There are more inventions, more findings every day. And how can keep, and who are the people keeping track on everything going on locally and globally? So that you're both on a local market and a global market, what's going on in every field, and also what's going on between the fields. So we need people connecting everything, knowledge, people, ideas, cities, and everything going on, and keeping track on that. And that means a lot of traveling, going to events, but also using social media and internet a lot to just study up and see what's going on, so you can spread ideas and connect people.
Yeah. And you know, one of the reasons that I started this classroom, I mean, one of the first reasons was Rehan, who said, you need to be teaching what you know online. And this was, you know, this was my kind of way of using social media proactively. So when you're talking about social media, we need millions of people doing this work. How do people use social media? This is a two-part question. How do people use social media to make the positive change in the world that we need them to make? And kind of the flip side of that is, can you tell us, because this is this classroom where I are talking about this, and where you're coming in as a new mentor teacher, what is it that people in Amy Carrier's classroom can do together? How can they best use this environment, this classroom of 6,000 plus people who all joined, knowing it's a classroom where they're going to learn lessons? Talk a little bit about that. How do we do it? And specifically, how can people in the classroom do it?
Yeah, so there's first you have to choose what networks you want to be on to spend time on. I primarily use Facebook and some LinkedIn, because that's where most of my networking people are. And I think Facebook is by far superior in user friendliness, and I'm a power user, so I like all kinds of way to speed up my interaction and usage of. So I have like my browser window is probably like 30 to 40 open Facebook windows with different people and different groups, and flipping between them and stuff like that. So it's very very much stuff like that, and that's easy to do in Facebook, but hard to do on LinkedIn and Twitter, to keep track on stuff like that. But and also you have to like practice some kind of mindfulness, so you don't get consumed. You have to set your how many hours per day do I want to spend, and how am I best productive? Should I read? Should I comment? Should I watch Facebook Live like this one? Or you can just be random, like me and Bertola. We do this like around the clock randomly when we feel like it. So okay, now it's a live stream. I just pushed something else aside and watched it, but that takes a lot of time, so not everyone can do it. But we need people actually doing this. So try to explore how you use it on a daily basis. What is your agenda? What is your goal? Do you want to learn something? Do you just want to do random navigation, or do you have a specific thing you actually want to discuss in a group or something like that? And see what you can do there. And you can use mobile or laptop, or in a different ways. If you're going to type a lot, it goes quicker on a keyboard. But doing video like this I do on my iPhone, and I have my computer next to me there. So I have both, because the camera and the audio is better on an iPhone, so I use that a lot. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've got 2 phones, an iPad.
Yeah, I got an extra phone as well. You need an extra phone.
Yeah, you do.
Just as a backup if you want to do one, film something or live stream something other and stuff like that.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, and it's easy. You can buy like a cheap foot like this that you have, and you put your iPhone on a table, so you don't have to hold it all the time. So that's an easy way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one of the other mentor teachers in the classroom, Leland Best. He got me all set up. He cut me things I could use to actually have a longer arm for my, to put my camera in there or put my phone in there to do videos. So there we are. So what I'm hearing you say is that what we're doing through SOCAP network and the networking that you and Bertola and Rehan have been doing, this is proof of the conscious evolution, not of humanity, but of the tools we have. Right. So I know in my experience, I've been on Facebook for 11 years, right? So it's totally different. I'm totally different. The way I interact with it, the way I use it is totally different. So I'm seeing a conscious evolution. And what I like about what you're doing, Michael, is you're really looking more deeply at how this conscious evolution can be, I don't really know how to say it. I want to say kind of packaged so that people can understand how to use this tool in front of them on their screen or in their phone for good, to do good work. But it's not, you can't only use the screen. You actually have to go out into the community and even you've traveled. I just came back from a long trip in Pakistan. So I guess I would really like to hear about this, how you see the conscious evolution. What does that mean to you? And then tell us about your trip to Pakistan as well.
Yeah. So like me and Bertola talked about in the other video, we said that some people criticize people for not being present in the physical sense, and nowadays we tell a lot of people when they keep up their phone, they're not being present in the moment. But we said that there's two ways to be present. You can be present when you talk to a person, active listening, but you also have something that we call digital present. You have to actually be present online and actually read and see what people do. If you're just broadcasting and not have a dialogue and actually have a conversation with people online, you're not really present. So that's a skill you have to develop as well. So consciousness is being present when I talk to a person in the room and actually listen to what they're saying. Like Otto Scharmer has the 4 level of listening. That's a fantastic model if you want to dig into that. But
please share that in the classroom.
Yeah. So the first step is downloading. That's when you're actually not listening. You're just hearing the words, but thinking about your own thing you got to say. And then after that, you have level 2 when you actually start to listen and hear what they say, but you just filter that through what you believe and know. But then they have the 3rd level where you actually take in what they say and don't use your own filters and to interpret what they say. That you actually learn something. And then the 4th level, what we call a generative dialogue, then we actually start learning on a very deep level together. And not every conversation is like that, but and not the whole conversation can be like that. But if you go into this generative dialogue often enough, you train this as a skill during conversations, and then you actually can come up with new things to do together, new solutions to problems, and it's very hard to be mad and criticize someone when you're in generative dialogue. And this is what we want our leaders to be, not the type of leadership we have, political leadership we have today when we have debates on TV. We don't want debates, we want dialogue. So we want generative dialogue, preferably, so people can actually solve problems when talking together instead of throwing shit at each other.
Right. Yeah. I like that term. I haven't heard it before. Generative dialogue.
Yeah.
Because, I feel like kind of the deepest level most people get is they have to get beyond. So I think I'm translating those 4 steps, 4 stages. People can get past their own consciousness or their own need to argue their point or their point. People can get to the brainstorming phase, right? Like we'll just throw our own ideas at each other. Maybe they'll merge, maybe we can come up with a new one. But people need to actually get the step beyond that, which is together, our individual ideas become something bigger and better. And this has not been taught in education systems. It's not been invited into conversation because people are, I think, typically or traditionally, people feel like they only live in their little bubble and they have to present what they feel is the right thing that needs to be presented in that scenario. So people don't think beyond their own consciousness. And I love this term of generative dialogue. I think that's brilliant. It really is kind of the more evolved level of communication between humans.
Yeah. So that's a skill we need to cultivate and learn, many more of us, to actually learn this, how to solve problems together and come up with new ideas and just have a good time together as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right? Because that's when we actually end up having fun.
Yeah. So like we both Facebook Live and actually going to conversation on Zoom and video, that's a way to be present online doing this. It's not the you can't get the like very super deep connection, but you can come up with some very good conversation. I had some fantastic conversation on Zoom this year. There's Ben Roberts and Ken I don't know his last name. They had a two sessions this year that called Deep Dive, where we can you went into some of them. It was really good. It's like 3 conversations per day in a month about this. So it's very many conversations. As many of them was very deep online. So that's a skill when you practice being present digitally online. So.
That's great. I hope you will share that in the classroom as well.
Yeah.
So I'm already thinking, like, I would love for you to teach a lesson on how to help people get from, I don't want to say like it's top to bottom or, right to left, but how people can get from stage 1 to stage 4, just where they automatically communicate based on whatever they've learned so far in life, to the generative discussion. How can people actually get there? Because I think people conceptualize, but the conceptualizing is just a one-dimensional hearing, right? Which is a step of what you're talking about. So I'm not asking you right now if you want to say something, but maybe you can help us learn in the classroom how to get from just the listening, taking data, to generative discussion, helping people actually evolve through those 4 steps.
Yeah, the first and easiest challenge is this: listen to a conversation like this, and then your task is to sum it up in 5 minutes. Then you really have to listen and get the most important part, and you have to write stuff down or stuff like that to actually remember what you're going to sum up. So that's a way to practice listening.
Yeah.
So
really, it's a practice.
So take a 1 hour conversation and sum it up in 3 or 5 minutes. Then you have to really listen. And then you can practice this a lot. I did it. I listened to a lot of podcasts, and I did a whole blog series where I summed up a written form and also a video form, summing up what they were talking about. And I practiced this for many years. So this is a skill you can practice.
Great practice.
Yeah,
it really is a great practice. I think just to add on to what you said, why it's not happening in society is in large part because I did something similar to this when I was a teacher, because there's a practice called Socratic Seminars. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's essentially students sitting physically in the middle of a room in a circle and other students sitting around the outside, and the students in the middle are having a conversation and they're debating or discussing some piece of text, some issue. And then the students on the outside are observing, and they're going to report what they've heard. Now, I think that got close, but it didn't actually get all the way to being generative, to actually producing something, because the education system puts kids in positions to have to listen to and regurgitate stuff they're not interested in. So nothing, right? So I think if you can teach this process to people and they then turn around of their own volition, their own free will, and apply it to their lives, then we're helping people to evolve and change their communities and their networks by generating more productive communication.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love this so much. I really do. I do. Communication is way back when I was in school. I first declared my major as communications. It evolved for whatever reason, but I think that communication is so critical, and I think it's actually so difficult.
Yeah.
And we grow up and no one teaches us how to do it. And there are some people who just can't. They just are shut down and can't communicate. Other people, you know, they just bowl over everyone. And then other people just kind of live in that space of just seeing their worldview and feeling like they have, there's no reason that I have to understand this other person. They're random. They don't have anything to do with my life. But you actually do, because we're a human family. And as we move into the future, we have to do better, because if this world right now, it's not okay. It's just not okay. And that, Michael, is why I asked you to be here, because you are focused on our future and an evolution that's positive for our future. So why don't you actually tell us, I do want you to talk about your trip to Pakistan, but before that, why don't you actually tell us, and anybody who's watching and everybody who's watching, thank you so much for being here. There have been a lot of you. We are going to get to your comments and your questions, but why don't you tell us what you see as kind of the future, Michael? What is, as Captain Future, what are we looking at? Where are we going?
Yeah, so some people I listened to said that now we've gone into this rapid innovation process for the last 150 years, where the new inventions comes faster and faster and faster. But now we have reached another limit, and that's the planetary limits. We can't dig up more resources, and we can't destroy more habitats. We had to figure out another way to improve our society or whatever we're gonna do. So we are at the limit of, or we're past the limit. We are currently consuming more than one planet at this. So it's some way in, I think in August or September somewhere, we reach the planetary limit. We consume more than the Earth produces. So we have to figure out another way to do everything, or we can just continue what we do and crash everything. So the planet will still be here, and there will still be life, but not we maybe kill a lot. we will maybe, humans will maybe be around, but in a very sad state, not the way the civilization looks today.
Right.
And we want a better society. I grew up watching Star Trek: The Next Generation, and that set me on a path where I want to create a better future. I can't do that. I can do this one, but not that one.
You can't do that one, the Vulcan salute.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't. It's not in that. There you go. Viewer.
Yeah.
So,
and in that we are at, like, literally the coming 1 to 3 years. You can hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Yeah. We have to change everything, and there's some people, really good thinkers, talking about this a lot. Some of them in California, they're talking about Game B. That's Jordan Hall and David Schmattenberger and Jim Roth and people like that. They're talking about we have to change everything. Nora Bateson has some fantastic conversation where she says we have to solve every problem at once. And some people say, yeah, we have to focus now. Should we solve the climate, or should we solve the energy, or what should we solve first? And she says we have to solve everything at once. And I'm with her in that. And that's going to take a tremendous amount of innovation, hard work, and energy from all of us. And most people are not even aware of this conversation, that this is something happening. More and more people are becoming aware that there's so many problems wrong in society, and we can't solve them one-on-one in silos, because that is what has got us into this mess we are in right now. So it's going to take, what we see, a lot of people that we call navigators or change makers or stuff like that, to actually help everyone along to coordinate this massive project. It's going to be the largest undertaking in human history by far.
Yeah.
And it's going to require, maybe, we don't know, maybe 10% of all people on Earth to actually working actively with this, and something like that. We don't know, because we haven't done it before, but it's going to take a lot of us to doing this.
So I want to ask you a question I have not asked you before. So you have no prep thinking about this. And it's a question that, do you know David Wilcox? Are you connected to him?
Yeah, I follow him on Facebook.
Is it David Wilcox? He's
Yeah.
here in the US, lives near me. He and I have had some phone calls. We've met in person. And he asked me, how do you scale something globally? Can you scale something globally? And he believes that you can. And what can we scale globally? Ideally, right? Not even ideally, because yes, Earth expired in 2018 by the beginning of August. It expired this year in August or so as well. So, and for those of you watching, if you don't know what we're talking about, there's actually there's a calendar that says that humans have used up the resources for a given year. So for 2018, I wrote an article on my LinkedIn in 2018 that said Earth expired last August.
And so we in Sweden are the worst, actually. We consume 4.5 Earth here in Sweden. So we're actually worst in the world. Yeah.
See, and that self-awareness, the fact that you can think about that, and the fact that I felt like whoever's watching this needs to hear it, that there is this expiration date each year that we've used all the resources. So, but that's one measurement. But going back to the question, can we scale this globally? So you're saying 10%, it might take 10% of our human family working specifically on these issues. And how do we scale? How do we find those people? How do we, I mean, are we relying on the 100th monkey effect? Are we actually, do you know the 100th monkey effect?
No, I've heard of it, but I don't remember what it is.
It's amazing. It was a scientific observation that was made that monkeys on this island started using stones to crack open coconuts, and the scientists did not see monkeys on this island do it. And they observed it. This goes back like maybe to the 50s. And these monkeys had never, they were very far apart. They didn't know each other. They had never cross-populated. And then the scientists started observing more and more monkeys on this island exhibit this behavior. And then after some time, they witnessed that there were monkeys on this island and this island doing this after never exhibiting that behavior. So it's kind of goes back to that collective consciousness that we're all just downloading information and choosing to interact with that information or not. So maybe it's the 100th monkey effect. That's how we get 10% of the population.
Yeah, there's something deeper. I can recommend everyone reading the book Stealing Fire. They talk a little bit about what they call it. There is some kind of consciousness or some way of we can communicate without words, because there's something happening in certain circles here on people when they go into very deep flow states. So to read, I won't sum it up here, but read the book Stealing Fire. I read it 5 times, and they discuss some part of this. What is it going on? Who can people learn something where actually never has seen someone else doing it? And a classic example they talk about is when the first person who ran the English mile in under 4 minutes. They thought it was impossible, and a half year later, many people were doing it. So there was something happening there. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And, whether it's the consciousness or whatever, please do share the name of that book you just mentioned.
Yeah.
You come up with so many great resources for people. I want to make sure that they get them. And thank you. I just want to say there's so many people who are still here. And Faizan Ahmed, we talked about System Entrepreneur. I would encourage you to go back and watch the replay. But if I can summarize it quickly while Michael's taking a note, we need entrepreneurs who are looking at new systems that need to be created and pull in all of the different pieces. Is that what you're saying, Michael? Does that sound fair? Yeah. Now, I actually consider myself a system entrepreneur. And I pulled in several different players and people, and I've done it in the education system when I pull in community groups and business leaders and religious groups and, you know, entrepreneurs, and teach the school systems how to actually pull all of these players together and build something new that teaches kids what they need to know to move into the real future, not the future that the education system is preparing them for, and how they do it, even with the restrictions of standardized testing and standard curriculum and all of that. This is my gift.
Yeah.
This is what I do. And that's what I'm hearing Michael say, but I want to hear more and more from Michael so that I can even look at system entrepreneurship from a, and there are other examples I can see in my mind, but this is what we want Michael to talk about. So Faizan, I think you should, you know, bookmark, make sure you follow Michael's lessons when he comes in here and talks. So do you have there? So there are two more questions I want to get to.
Yeah.
Go look at the comments and the questions here. You have another sense. So I mentioned 100th Monkey. You said, yes, there's a collective evolution or a collective consciousness. But how do we get to the 10% or whatever it is? How do we get more system entrepreneurs? How do we get more people understanding that this is what they need to be doing?
I don't know yet, but my so like it's an open call to any city organizations. Hire a team of 10 system entrepreneurs and get them working prototyping and see and make it the first mover and make a model of this. So
yeah, okay, good. So we don't have the answer, and I don't have the answer necessarily for how to scale globally either.
No.
And maybe one of us or both of us need to get David Wilcox in here to continue that conversation I've had with him a few times. So
yeah, I can say I've taught myself all the skills. The last 8 years I've been on a discovering journey myself and taught myself everything. There was no course in the university of the things I want to do. So I've taught everything myself in 8 years, and I've done it very inefficiently. So we can for sure teach this to people in 2 to 4 years, all the skills you need to become a system entrepreneur.
Right. And that's exactly how I feel about why I started this classroom. I went through the School of Hard Knocks. There's a degree, first of all, for what I do. And there's no school that's teaching the things that I think are important that I'm teaching here in this virtual classroom. But I was just tired of my life is passing by. Time is passing by. Still needs it. So, hey, I'm just going to use Facebook. I'm just going to ask other brilliant people to come in and teach what they know, what I value. And we're going to do whatever we can for whoever watches our videos.
Yeah.
So, okay. Tell us about your trip to Pakistan. You just took a month-long trip.
Yeah. So I met Rehan this summer when he came to Sweden and said, you have to come to Pakistan and stuff like that. And then we went to the Global Mayor Summit in Copenhagen, me and Rehan, and we met some mayors there. And he said, yeah, now I'll set you up. Come a week to Pakistan and hang out the mayor of Karachi. And I spent the whole day with him there. And then I started planning and says, you can stay as long as you want. Okay, I can stay 3 weeks in Pakistan. Or a full month. So I cleared my calendar for whole of November, so I had nothing booked there. So, and I said, okay, let's do this. And I came there and I met Rehan and he took me and I got invited together with Bartola to start up Pakistan and Jumpstart Pakistan and Lift Pakistan free conferences. So where we went and talked and everything, and we didn't have much plan, and we tried to reach the mayor, but he was too busy when I was there. So he actually called the day after I left for Sweden. So I said, I have time. Yeah. So I missed him, but I got so many other things done. I traveled around Pakistan. I went to 4 different universities and gave lectures about my way of thinking and how you can become a person like me and stuff like that. And so it was an amazing learning journey, and Pakistan is very different from every other country I've visited so far. And there's so much contrast, so many poor people and some ultra rich people, and it's not that like homogenious like the Swedish society, where everyone is well off, but no one is like super ultra rich. That there's not that much contrast in the Swedish society. It's very different there. So, right. and people were very friendly and they were very curious, but at the same time there was almost no entrepreneurship and stuff like that. People don't actually create the value with the things they have. They grow a lot of stuff. They're the world's third largest milk producer according to Rehan, but they still have no cheese because no one is entrepreneurial enough to make it and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things that they can do and have the ability to do, but not doing yet. So, and of course, like many parts of the world, that's a gigantic problem with the air pollution in the cities, plastic pollution everywhere in nature. So that's a lot of the plastic that gets washed out in the sea comes from these countries because there's no trash collection and recycling and anything like that. So.
Yeah.
And it really hurts my heart to walk in nature and see plastic everywhere. So we don't have that in Sweden. We have very clean, good nature here. But you walked up in the mountains and it was so sad for me.
I feel exactly the same. And that was my feeling when I went to Kenya. There was just plastic garbage everywhere. And it broke my heart.
Yeah.
I live in America, and there are places where people just throw garbage out the window on the highway and it doesn't get picked up unless there's a crew that comes through maybe a month or something. But otherwise we don't have that problem. I mean, where I live, no garbage. I've always, if there is a piece of garbage, maybe it blew out of someone's garbage bin, on trash one day, then I pick it up or other people pick it up because this is our community. But what I'm hearing is that in Pakistan, there's so much potential, but people haven't captured that or realized that they can do that. What do you think the limiting belief is? What do you think is holding them back from making cheese or creating a recycling system?
I don't want to speculate too much, but Rehan can probably talk a lot more about that. But that's I
have talked about that,
yeah, because it's what I would say it's a storytelling. So it's this, I'm a big fan of Seth Godin and other people talking about storytelling. The stories we tell ourselves, the stories we tell our friends, the stories our friends tell us, the stories we learn from our culture, religion, and stuff like that. And of course the global. We all see like movies and TV series, but we say it's entertainment. Movies and TV series and storytelling has never been entertainment. It's been the primary source of human knowledge for 40,000 years, and we use it so wrong today. And I said to Rehan, we know nothing of Pakistan. Make a global big budget Hollywood movies set in Pakistan. You don't have to teach anything. Just show people and back interest in this and start using storytelling for good.
Right. Yeah. Because my understanding of most of the developing world, their perception of America, it's all so Hollywood is just making up and telling stories. And stories are based on things that are good. Some of those stories are really destructive and not helpful. So that's just an entirely different thing. And as soon as I asked you that question, I kind of felt myself backtracking, because I think back to when Rehan and I did a couple of years ago, we were doing a show every Friday, helping people to become entrepreneurs. And the reason he asked me to do this with him is he said, there's so much potential. And I remember he talked about the cheese thing. I remember he talked about anybody can make, what was it, $100 a month. They could set up their own, their own fry stand anywhere and make money. And I observed so many things that I learned from Rehan that were very similar in Kenya, that there's just, I don't know if it's a culture or cultures around the world who feel like they don't have permission. I do feel like our cultures, even my culture here in the US, students feel like they've never been given permission to follow their dreams and break down barriers. It's a very rare person, but then you get this perception of the United States of, people are always breaking through barriers. Yes, because we have freedom to do it for the most part, but no, because our education system indoctrinates people to think a particular way.
Yeah.
You know, the perception, I feel like I do have some understanding about Pakistan because I've had so many conversations with Rehan, but I haven't been there to observe it myself. So that's why I almost want to undo that question that I asked. But you spent a month there, so you have some insight, not that you have to advertise your insight. Now you've got a level of perception that you can turn around and you can teach from that perception and help to get people to open their minds and make some changes in their thinking and their actions. So, Michael, would you like to say some final words before we hop off?
Yeah, I can sum it up. So whenever people ask you to choose between something, the answer is always both. So I'm both a Star Wars and a Star Trek fan. So
as you should be.
Yeah. So whenever someone makes you choose something or says they have the right answer or something is black and white, the answer is somewhere in between or much more complex than you think. So it's always both. So that's called ambiguity, and that's something you have to learn to hold in your head. Cognitive dissonance or something like that. So you can love several things and you can love them in different ways. So, but it's all comes down to curiosity and love. So
yeah, absolutely. Can I add something onto that? That was a brilliant last word, but I want to add on to that. What I've been encouraging people to do is just because you haven't heard of something, just because something is new to you doesn't make it wrong. So stop yourself from having an instant disagreement reaction and just be open. Just be open. And I love that. If someone asks you to pick one or the other, pick both. I always pick both. I'm drinking both tea and water. Why not? I can drink everything. So, Michael, this was so much fun, and we went way over an hour because you and I can clearly have a long conversation.
Yeah.
Generative discussion. And I'm so grateful for you coming in and joining us in this virtual classroom. And I'm grateful for your time today. And I'm grateful for your mind. I've been fascinated by your mind for a long time. So I'm grateful to have it in the classroom.
So on that note, live long and prosper, and may the force be with you.
May the force be with you. That's right. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Amy Carroll. This is Michael Sillion. We appreciate your time, and we want you to go out there and make the world a better place. And you can do it, and this guy's going to teach you how. All right, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.